kick through the wind, and somewhere underneath these bones, that young soul still lives on. Yeah, I'm still here. Been a long road walking through the highs and lows. Some things I held on to, some I let go. I ain't who I started, that much I can see, but every mile behind me still belongs to me. Still here, still me. Ain't lost the heart that carried me through every change, through every tear. I'm still standing, still here. I don't need no answers, don't need to rewind. I made peace with the past now, left it where it lies. I ain't chasing nothing, ain't got nothing to prove, just living in the moment with nothing to lose. Still here, still me. Ain't who I was, but I'm who I need. Every scar, every year brought me closer
Dr. Ben, can we see you now? It's exactly 4 p.m. Hi, nice to have you, Dr. Ben. You're muted. We can see you, but you're muted.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, nice to
Yeah,
be here.
so
Thank you.
thank you for honoring our invitation. So we're going to start now. It's 4 p.m. And welcome everyone, wherever you're joining from. It's either a good morning, a good afternoon, or good evening. And on behalf of Ivan Research Institute Nigeria, I would like to welcome you to the August webinar series. My name is Professor Tonia Onyeka. I'm the Associate Director of Ivan. And we welcome everyone today, and we plead with you, please listen carefully, get all your questions ready, and put them in the Q&A. We would love them in the Q&A and not in the chat. And if you would, during the Q&A, if you like to speak out or ask a question that's not on the Q&A, you can use the raise hand function and signify. So let's dive into the program for today. We all know that securing research funding of recent has been very, very critical because the funding pool has shrunk, but it's still highly competitive. And Tefund remains the number one funders for biomedical research in Nigeria. And a lot of Nigerians have great research ideas, but they never get funded. And this is the reason why we decided to have this webinar today. And our hope is that this webinar is going to bridge that gap, get those excellent ideas that have been rejected, accepted at your next application. And so for today, going to introduce our guest speaker, and he is none other than, I hope you can see my screen now, he's none other than Dr. Ben FESTUS. He is the Director of Research and Development at the Federal Polytechnic Ede and a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. He is a material scientist and he has had several successful grants, and he has also mentored a lot of grant recipients. He also supports researchers in grant writing, in artificial intelligence and innovation, and in translating research ideas into fundable projects with measurable societal impact. And that's when we took a look at the great things he's done in his space. We said he is about the most qualified person to be on the webinar today. And so it is my great pleasure and our great pleasure to invite Dr. Ben to share his screen with us and take it away from here. So Dr. Ben.
All right, Dr. Tonia, thank you so much. It's a pleasure
Thank
meeting
you.
you in person. I also want to appreciate the entire team for making this presentation possible. I'm currently out of the country, so don't mind me if I'm a bit cold, but I will try to deliver the assignment as much as possible. I know we have shortage of time, so I will try to ensure that I'm a bit audible, and of course, don't try to rush most of the things we want to discuss. All right, so like has been rightly said, today we're looking at how to secure TED Fund NRF grants. It's not going to be an extensive discussion. I will try to also make sure I touch on the key points to help us to understand what this funding is all about and how we can assess it. And of course, we'll try to look at some practical steps and some common mistakes that many researchers often find themselves making that denies them of assessing these grants. So the question is, okay, Dr. Ben, why should we listen to you? Why are you the right person to deliver this presentation? Yes, for me, I have a track record of research grant that cuts across the global chain. Um, of course, from 2007 till date, I've been able to accrue over 101 million grants locally. And of course, internationally, I've had more than 50,000 pounds grants international. And of course, we keep making more progress, trying to still secure more funds because as researchers, what we'll feed on is basically fund that can help us take us to the next stage of our career and discover that next important idea that will help the world. And of course, for me, in 2024, I won my first NRF. It will interest you to know that it was my first attempt. So I won my grant at my first attempt. So, and I'm sure that after this call or after this conversation, somebody will also set that same record. So the question now is apologies, please. So the question now is what has been the funding scape for Tefund's research grants, especially the NRF? The NRF is an acronym for National Research Fund. And of course, Tefund has three major categories of funding available to those in the academia. They have the institutional funds, which is the IBR. Of course, that is administered at the local level. It used to be 2 million, but now I think it's 5 million for sciences and 4 million for those in the humanities and the arts department. They also have what we call the equipment fabrication funding. That is more available for those in the polytechnics, not for the universities as it were. Then the National Research Fund goes across everybody. However, we will discuss some of the eligibilities that makes you or your institution eligible for this. So when I went through the 2020 Tefund NRF cycle, I observed that about 5,814 concept notes were actually submitted, and it will interest you to know that only 573 actually went to the advanced stage, which is a full proposal stage. Now, that is a big minus or a big margin because out of 5,000 plus, only 573 made it through. That's 9.9% of proposals that scale through to the full proposal stage. And out of the same 573 proposals, we found that only 217, that's 217, representing about 3% were actually funded. So that tells you that this fund, though it is local, it's also highly competitive. And of course, if you don't know the secrets, you will find that you will keep applying and you will not get results, or you will join the bandwagon of those that believe that you must know somebody to access these grants. Like I told you, I won my first grant at my first attempt, and I don't know anybody. In fact, I also used to believe that you must know somebody. But of course, after attending a webinar like this, not really a webinar, a physical interaction with Professor Ibino. And of course, I saw that this thing is doable. The worst I can get is a no. And I did put in my best. And today, it has become one of those history points that has actually opened more doors for me. So the point is, we don't want to discourage you from applying. Don't look at these numbers, especially those that submitted and did not make you through. Look at the 217 and begin to ask yourself, how can I be among these 217? And one thing I can assure you is that it is possible for you to actually be among these 217. And that is part of what we want to look at this evening. Now, one of the challenges many of us make is when it comes to grant writing, we approach grant writing from the perspective of a researcher, which is basically wrong. Grant writing or academic writing, they are not the same thing. For academic writing, you try to explain past experiences, interpret evidence, tell people what you already know. But for grant writing, your job is to persuade the funder to invest in your research. So it means, number one, if you're going to get somebody to reinvest in your research, then whatever you are writing, whatever you are trying to do must meet the reviewers, what he or she is interested in. So it is no longer about your own interest now. The issue is it's about the reviewer or the funder. is this research worth funding? So the reviewer has to take a decision to decide if what you are proposing can actually benefit them or benefit somebody or benefit the nation. So you need to understand the reviewer's lens. So grant writing is not about it's not the same thing as academic writing, and that's where many people make mistake. They've got great ideas, they've got great presentations, they've got great problems, but of course, they are not writing to persuade the funder to see their work. So what I'm going to do this afternoon is to make us think like a reviewer, not like an applicant. So if you're going to be successful, especially when it comes to grant writing at the NRF level, you need to start thinking like a reviewer. If you are the one that is reviewing this particular proposal, will you fund it? Will you accept it? Or will you decline it? So that is one of the things I want us to be able to achieve at the end of this interaction. Now, NRF, like I said, is a national research fund. And of course, it's an annual intervention that is actually funded by Tefund. Tefund is an agency of the government, and of course, is the only body currently in Nigeria doing something about funding research in the academia. So it's important that if you're in this call and you belong to a polytechnic or university, then you need to understand that NRF or through Tefund is actually the one where you need to actually get more money to fund your research. However, the major issue about NRF is it does not fund small projects. They fund as much as 50 million naira worth project. So which means whatever you are doing has to be something that can actually transform the nation. It is not just something that is just going to be limited to a local environment or maybe just your community. No. Tefund research for NRF is targeted at Nigeria's socio-economic development. So which means your proposal must begin with a national important problem and of course end with a credible benefit. So you could look at areas like health care systems, information systems, maternal systems, maybe maternal and child health, priority diseases, diagnostics, mental health, a lot of things that as long as it's a national issue, then of course you can be assured of at least, moving from one stage to the other. We'll look at the different stages next. For the NRF circle, there is a sequence of stages when it comes to applying. The first stage is the concept note. The concept note is the first thing you must do. Of course, I will show you what the concept note is all about as we continue. Then after that, if you are shortlisted, you will go into full proposal. And of course, after a full proposal, you would also proceed to proposal defense. That is if you are shortlisted, if a proposal, meets the scoring criteria. So from the final proposal defense, if you're able to scale through, then of course, you would get funded. So there are 3 key stages when it comes to Tefund NRF funding. You must submit a concept note, and of course, you must have a full proposal, and finally, you must actually engage in the proposal defense. So what are the eligibility criteria to partake in TET NRF? Of course, number 1, you must belong to a Nigerian institution, and your institution must be, how do I put the word? Is he a member now? Your institution must actually be one that can access TET fund intervention. What I mean by this is private institutions currently in Nigeria cannot benefit from TET fund. Because Tefund is a government agency, so it only funds public tertiary institutions. This spans across universities, polytechnics, I think College of Educations, I'm not too sure, but I think universities and polytechnics have been key players in these regards. Though I think the Tefund NRF should also expand to the College of Education, but maybe they've not really gotten much patronage in that regard. So the key thing is, it's not even about you, it's the fact that somebody that will be the PI must be from an institution. PI simply means the principal investigator. They must be from an institution in Nigeria that is owned by the government. And of course, that does not mean that those in a private institutions cannot benefit. They can benefit, but through what we call collaboration. So in case you have an idea and you're in a private school or a private university, all you just need to do is look for somebody in a public university or polytechnic, and of course, collaborate with them. And then, of course, that way you can also be part of the team. But the fact remains that the institution must be a Nigerian public tertiary institution. And of course, the PI must be based from there. So the PI actually is what we call the lead applicant, is the one that is active and of course responsible for the science, the team supervision, and of course the grant management. So everything about the research or the funding will have to go through the PI. So in this case, you must be careful when you are selecting your PI. And of course, before I move to the next slide, somebody is asking, somebody might want to ask, can I actually have a foreign collaborator? Of course, yes. But of course, like I said, they must be partners. So NRF allows you to collaborate even with Nigerians in diaspora or institutions that are not based in Nigeria, but the rule is the PI must be from a Nigerian public tertiary institutions. So there are also different categories when it comes to NRF. We have three key categories. The first is the humanities and social sciences. Then number two is the science, engineering, technology, and innovation. And number three is what we call the cross-cutting. The cross-cutting is actually a kind of a category that blends, sciences and humanities or some special case studies. And of course, for cross-cutting, you have examples like entrepreneurship and wealth creation. You have environment, housing, urban and regional development. You have resource governance, the blue economy. I think we have about 6 of these categories under cross-cutting. For science, engineering, technology, we have 11 categories. And of course, for humanities and social sciences, we equally have 11 categories. Now, it is important for you to know that you must apply to the right category. One of the reasons why many people get rejected early, especially at the concept note, is they don't pick the right category. So the category is not about your own field. The category is where the research you are trying to do, where it fits into. The mistake many people make is if, for example, now I'm in sciences and I'm trying to do a research on the gender violence. Now, it will be wrong for me to select science-based category because my field or my profession or my career is around sciences. No, that particular research topic aligns more with humanities and social sciences. So most of the times we'll find that one of the key mistakes many people make is they select the category based on what their own profession or career is all about, and that is wrong. Your selection of a category should be influenced or determined by the kind of research you are trying to do. So we need to pay key attention to this very important aspect. So the next thing is how then does the Tefund NRF proposal start? And of course, like I said, one of the key things you need to do here is the fact that you must develop a national problem. Tefund NRF is strictly looking at problems that affect Nigeria as a whole. So your problem or your research must actually look at a pressing problem currently and propose a solution in that regards. And that is where many people fail. Your problem must carry a national, how do I put it now? A national scope. It must be something that affects somebody in the north, somebody in the south, somebody in the west, and even somebody in the east. So, because you cannot define a problem for NRF based on maybe your community, that, okay, I'm from Abulegba community, so this problem is here, they will not get you funded because the scope is limited. They are looking for projects that can actually, or research that can benefit the nation as a whole. So your first key aspect is to start with identifying a national problem. And one of the key ways you can do this is look at, you have to listen to news. What is the issue with the country right now? You agree with me, one of the major issues we have in Nigeria right now is banditry and kidnapping. So if you have a research that can solve or eliminate banditry and kidnapping, I can assure you that, of course, you will get funded. In fact, I'm currently, the last, for 2025, two topics were funded on banditry. One was a technology for peace app device that somebody is trying to come up with. Another person is developing a geospatial indicator-based framework for early detection of armed banditry or sports in Northwest Nigeria. So, of course, it got funded because banditry is a major issue right now. So, I don't know what the proposal is all about, but of course, from the topic alone, from the title alone, you can see that it's actually addressing national problems. So your research must address a national problem if you want it to be funded. And of course, you must gather evidence to support that it's a national problem. Then again, you want to understand the gap. What have others done about it? And what is missing? Of course, for somebody that is studying banditry, of course, he wants to say, okay, the security forces are doing something, but this is where they are limited. And this is how my research can actually enhance their performance or increase engagements with terrorists or help them to discover their hideouts and stuff like that. And of course, another key example can be in the health sector. And for me, I actually brought out one because I assume most of my audience here will be from the health sector. And of course, regardless of whatever sector you are from, the principle is the same. Look at your own sector, find out what is the national problem in your sector, in your area of research. Then, of course, begin to look at research in that regards. That is what NRF is looking for. So, assuming for an health sector, we're looking at hypertension. You will agree with me that in Nigeria, hypertension is or has become one of the major problems of the citizens, whether due to lack of money, due to the kind of food we eat. But of course, there are statistics that shows that there's a problem because if you actually have 22 million adults between the age of 30 to 79 that are living with hypertension, that tells you there's a problem. It's a problem. So again, the question is, what research, what solution can you provide that can help, people living with this disease or condition to get better? So, but again, I'm still going to come back to that later. When you're trying to frame your problem when it comes to Tefund NRF application or proposals, you must quantify them with values or with figures. For example, don't just say people die of hypertension in Nigeria. Of course, that does not give any alarming situation. You must put a statistics like the way I've done it. 19.1 million do not have the condition controlled. So those values alone I'm mentioning is telling the reviewer that, look, this research or this problem is actually worth funding in. Because if you have 22 million people that are suffering from a disease, what it simply means is by the time you come up with a cure, it means you have money. Even if 1 million subscribe to your cure and you sell your cure for just 1,000 naira, you know how much that money how much that money will become, or that much the total you will get back into your own personal finances or for your institution. So they're looking at it from that perspective. It's not just doing a research by just saying one or two. You must be able to quantify, estimate the problem, and of course, the funder is looking at the potential impact of of who will benefit from the solutions that you're actually going to discover at the end of your research. So do not just chase a national problem, but again, your national problem must be within your team specialty. We'll discuss, I will mention that again later as we continue. So there, like I said, there are 3 phases for Tefund NRF, and the first phase starts with preparing and submitting a concept note. And of course, you are supposed to appoint a PI. A PI is the principal investigator. And again, Tefund NRF is not for an individual. It's for a team of researchers. Of course, there is no maximum, but of course, at least you must be at least 5 or more to benefit from this. And again, one of the things they also look out for is gender balance. Your team must be comprised of both male and female. So don't just make it a single, a one-way gender kind of team. Your team must balance, or maybe if you actually have a team of 5, maybe 3 are males, 2 are females, just make sure there's this there. And of course, you also have I think they also support the disability aspect as well. So just your team composition is very, very key. But actually, from this team composition, one person will have to be the PI. And of course, the PI is expected to visit nrf.tedfund.gov.ng create an account if they have not created an account. And of course, you create an account with your institutional email, preferably, because that is more authentic. So if you don't have one, you want to get one. And of course, when you are done with that, you can be able to log in. Now, when you log in, you see this second interface that I have here, where you can, let me see if I can zoom in. Okay, I can zoom in. All right, so you see the second interface where you have the concept note, which is the first thing you have to fill. Now, for the concept note, there are 15 sections that you're expected to complete. We have the research topic, we have the category, we have the thematic area, we have the estimated budget. I'm going to stop this slide and share another slide with you that shows you an example of the concept note that I actually used for my own grant that I won some few years back. That's just less than 2 years. Okay. All right. Sorry, please. So, yes, apologies. Let me quickly get this out of the way. Okay. So, yeah, so for my research team, we actually, this was the application we submitted. So for the concept note, your title has to be there. Apologies with my slide. Okay. So for the concept note, you have your research title. In my own case, the research title is biomimetic apologies, I'm trying to get something out of the, okay, fine. Now, biomimetic management, phytoremediation, and phytomining of polluted mining sites in southwestern Nigeria. Now, you can see that our research is not limited to somewhere like Iperido, somewhere like Osun or Lagos. No, we are actually looking at a research that affects mining sites in southwestern Nigeria. So if you're going to frame your topic, don't frame your topic using local context. You have to give it a regional view, you know. So that's one of the key things you have to understand, because your concept notes, if you don't do it well, it will determine if you will get to the second stage, which is proof of proposal or not. So it's important you have your title, because for all of these, there are marks, there are scores, and there are so they are not just going to pick your project because they know you, but as long as you fulfill the condition that they're expecting. So for the category, we are under STI. And of course, for the thematic area, remember for STI, SETI, we actually add 11 thematic areas. And of course, this aligns more with our research, that's sustainable use of natural resources and terrestrial ecosystems. And of course, we proposed a budget of 33 million. Remember, for NRF, the maximum you can have is 50 million naira. So your budget must actually be, if we don't propose 2 million, 3 million, they will throw it away. It shows you don't know what you're doing. You can actually use IBR for those ones. So whatever you're looking for, money from 20 million and above, 20 million to 50 million. So that's about the reasonable margin. Then of course, you have your background of the research. Now, in this case, there is a word count. So for concept notes, you are limited by word counts. You cannot put in all the information yet. It's just for them to understand what you want to do and if they can fund it, if it's actually a research that addresses the national problem. If it's not, they will just drop it. So they don't want to stress you at the first stage. Just give us an idea of what you're doing. And it's very important here. Many research fails at this point. If for example, the concept for the background, they are saying it should not exceed 100 words. If you have 1 or 2 words, no matter how good your research is, your proposal will be dropped. And this is where many people have failed. So it is not as if they don't like your face. That's why you were not funded. It was you that did not, because, for example, a funder receives almost 100,000 applications and he has money for only just 500 people. Of course, regardless of how beautiful your proposal is, once you don't meet the guideline, you will be dropped. So you have to pay attention to the word count at this stage. because it's very essential. Small mistakes like this is what has led so many people not to be funded. So there's the background of the research. You must develop that. There's a statement of the problem. Tell us what the problem is. What exactly is the problem that you are trying to solve? Why is it a problem? And of course, the next thing is your objective. Your objective must be SMART. You know what SMART is? Something that you can measure that is realistic, that is time bound. So don't just give us objectives that has no, location or has no bearing. Your objective must be SMART. It's very, very essential. Then you have the section for research questions. Your research questions and your objectives must align. If you have 6 objectives, what it means is your research question must also be 6. And each research question must answer each objective. So these are some of the pitfalls many applicants make, why, and of course, they don't get funded. And of course, you have the literature review section. The literature review, here you are not going to explain too much. Just tell us what have others done about the problem. What did they do? And then, of course, why is the problem still persisting? So your literature review section is there. Again, you can see it's very limited. I'm going to show you the full proposal so you can begin to judge what I'm saying here. For concept note, it is word count limited. You are restricted by number of words. Then, of course, there is a theoretical framework section. Most of you don't know about theoretical framework. I will advise you can use AI tool to assist you understand the theoretical framework that fits into your research, especially for those of us in sciences. For those in humanities and social sciences, they are already familiar with theoretical frameworks. So they know what kind of framework they want to use for their study. But if you are from a science or engineering background, don't say it does not apply to me. If you don't fill this section, your proposal might get dropped. That's the fact, because it will be scored 0. So don't leave any section unfilled. If you don't know what to write in theoretical framework, please use the AI tool to assist you to understand what theoretical framework best answers the questions that has to do with the research you are doing. And of course, again, you want to give us a brief research methodology, very brief. They don't want any long story here. Just tell us in brief, how do you want to carry out the research to solve the problem you have identified? Then, of course, we have the expected results. What kind of result are you expecting at the end of this research? Sometimes, again, you can tie it to objectives because, again, your objectives should be able to drive your results. So that way, if you have objectives, each objective should lead to a result. And of course, lastly, the innovation. What is the new thing that your study will be contributing to research? And of course, lastly, references. So most of the times we try to keep references at this level to just about 5 references as much as possible. Don't exceed 5, but of course, don't do 1 or 2. And again, the first 2, 3 references might not be yours. But of course, one way or the other, your reference also has to be there. And lastly, you have the research team. And of course, you have to list the name of the research team members and what everybody is doing at that level. So that is what we have in this regard. So quickly, I return back to our PowerPoint slide. So that is that for when it comes to the concept note and what you expected to feel. So if your proposal scales through the concept note, then of course you would be required to proceed to the next stage where you were supposed to present the full proposal. However, just to re-emphasize what I've said before, your proposal or your concept note must be such that it addresses the need of the project. Like I've said before, your background, you want to use numbers to allow the reviewers to understand the fact that whatever problem you're trying to solve is actually a problem. And of course, if they don't see it as a problem, they might drop your concept note. And of course, the statement of problem also must be clear. Just the same way you will actually have a clear literature review or a clear novelty statement. All of these things must be clear such that when the reviewer is going through them, they can immediately see the direction your research is actually going to. Also, your objective is very, very important. And of course, how you're going to deliver it for a measurable value is also very, very important. Actually, for this slide, I was trying to look at the community-based hypertension detection that we developed earlier. But because of time, I'm not going to spend much time there. So for the phase 2, once you are successful with phase 1 and your proposal moves to phase 2, which is the full proposal, you'll be asked to submit the full proposal. Now, the issue with this one is most of the times you are only given 2 weeks to prepare a full proposal, and which means you have to work very hard. Now, the problem is many people leave it too late. So I will advise that you start very early, because 2 weeks to prepare a full proposal, to prepare a budget, all of those things, they take time. And sometimes, of course, we've had situations where Tefund have to, maybe adjust or extend, but you can't bank on extension. It's not your right to get the extension. So you have to prepare yourself to submit before the deadline. And of course, this picture here is from our current NRF research project. We're actually working on we actually have a field simulation that we have here. So this is one of our projects that we are doing now. So for the full proposal as well, it also has different blocks. So let me quickly switch to that slide where I will show you what our full proposal look like when we applied for the Tefund research call. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because the reason why many projects don't get funded is not because the authors or the researchers did not have a good topic, but the issue is many of them did not follow the guidelines. So if you have a good project, a good proposal, and you don't follow the guidelines, you will not get funded. So now, for full proposal, you have to start all over again. There's the title section, there's the category section, there's a thematic area, and of course, your budget that you have estimated or proposed is still there. Then, of course, you start with the general background of the research project. You have the introduction part. At this level, you are to provide a general background of the problem and justification that supports the research you are trying to propose. So that's one section. Of course, they all have word counts, but for this introduction section, you can also add figures or images to support whatever you are trying to make the funders understand or the reviewers go to understand about your research. Then next is the aim and specific objectives. So remember, we've talked about it. Your objective must be smart. So make sure your objective is smart. Then, so if you're actually having like, I think here we actually add like 6 objectives. And of course, your statement of the problem. Again, why does this research need to be conducted and the problems that you are addressing? You have to state them carefully. So most of the time, it's better you understand these particular, don't just write from your own mindset. Write to ensure that you are answering the question. There's a reason why these things are in bracket. And the problem with many of us most of the time is we have this over self-confidence in what we do. Oh, is it not this thing I've written before? Academic writing is not the same as grant writing. So most of the times, if you approach grant writing with the mindset of, oh, I'm good in journal writing, article writing, you will not get funded because they are not the same thing. There are reasons why the funders have put this supporting statement here. They want to see that whatever information you have in this area addresses specifically these questions they are expecting from you. Why does this research need to be conducted? Don't just say it needs to be conducted because I think it. No, it is not what you think. You have to prove, justify with evidences. And that is where your problem statement has to be very, very strong. You have to make them understand that this is a problem that needs national urgent attention. This is a national problem that needs urgent attention, and that your research team has what it takes to provide the solution. So you develop a conceptual framework of the study. clearly identify and define the central concepts or ideas that underline the study. Of course, you can use a flow chart depending on whatever you're doing. And of course, the next stage is the research output and outcomes. Of course, here you have to divide into two. There is what we'll have the expected research output, and of course, we also have the overall research outcomes. I'm not going to go into full details because of time. I have just less than 15 minutes to round up. So, but of course, I'm just showing us concepts from what successful grant applications look like for NRF. And of course, we have another section called project impact. Here, you are to provide information on the long-term impacts of the project. Now, look at it within the context of social, economic, and technological benefits. So don't just write in paragraphs. You can use bullets like we have done here. Show the reviewer what the social benefits are for your research. Show the reviewer what the economic benefits are for your research. In our own case, we talk about resource recovery, cost savings, sustainable land use, tourism, and recreation. So your research might vary or might differ in these regards. And lastly, what are the technological benefits? These three areas are very vital. If they are missing, it's most likely your research will not be funded. The next, we move to research details. Under research details, the first thing you have is the literature review. Now, look at this. Compare it to what we had in the concept note. Here, your literature review has to be more expanded. So you have to get as many literatures as possible. Now, let me state this clearly. Tefund does not fund, NRF is not for new research. Why I'm saying this is because most of the time, some people scale through the full proposal stage, but they don't make it to the final stage. Now, what is expected is when you present this literature review, while you are presenting what others have done, you also want to show what your own group has done. And I'm going to show us as we continue from this place, because there's a mark for that. Because they don't want to give somebody money, 50 million, to go and start trying. No, this is a research you have been doing, but you want to now move to another stage of the research. And without money, you can't move to that next stage. That is why you're asking them to fund you. So you must show evidence that you and your team have started doing something. And of course, how far have you gone? And from this literature review, one of the things you will see us do here is to actually highlight what we have also done. And of course, this is one of my research, because if your reference, you're actually citing people and there is no reference, no citation that has to do with what you have done in relation to the study, then it shows that your group is actually not doing anything. So it's not compulsory the PI, anybody from your group that has done something in that regard. So that's why when you are picking your team, don't pick team based on man, no man. Pick team based on ability to deliver. What do they have to contribute? So somebody in your team or people in your team must have been working in something similar to that particular problem before you can ask for NRF funding. So again, the next session is the research methodology. So you want to give a detailed methodology of the research that you are trying to do. This can vary depending on the kind of field you are. Humanities is different from sciences. And of course, within sciences, we also have different, so you're going to write based on your research on your field where you actually belong to. Then next is the data collection method. So you want to tell us how do you want to collect your data. All these, that's why it's that the full proposal is very long. So it is not something you must start preparing for 2 weeks, because you only have 2 weeks to submit. So don't wait until 2 weeks before you start drafting. Once you submit your concept note and you have done it fine, you can go ahead and start preparing your full proposal, because it's always demanding and very, very comprehensive. The next is the project activities and the outputs. Give details of the activities of the research project and their expected outputs. So sometimes there are some paragraphs, some areas where it's better you use numbering systems. paragraph system. So in this case, for us, we wanted to state the activity we want to carry out, and of course, the output we are expecting from that particular activity. Very, very brief statement, because again, you are limited to what counts. You cannot just write and keep writing. There's a number of characters or words that you must write per time. So it's important you adhere to it. The next part is the time frame. For the time frame, you would also be required to produce a Gantt chart. So if you don't know what a Gantt chart is, you will need to learn that as well. But of course, you can actually do is break down like I have here, that is showing you the activity period. Tefund NRF is basically for 24 months. So how do you want to get the research done within 24 months? So tell them plan by plan, stage by stage. And of course, whatever plan you are bringing must be reasonable. You're also allowed to add notes to whatever you are bringing. Like in our own cases, we had to put notes just to explain the reason why we felt that particular timeline was going to be enough, or why we're proposing a particular timeline. Then again, you want to do what we call the KPI, key performance indicator. So at this stage, you want to state the indicators for each major activity of the project. And of course, there are 3 indicators: the process indicator, the outcome indicator, and the impact indicator. You must provide answers to these 3 indicators. You cannot leave them blank. Once you leave them blank, you can kiss your application goodbye. So monitoring and evaluation, you want to state clearly how you are monitoring the project. How will the project be? Because again, within the first year, Tefund will send their team to come to your institution to look at what you are doing. So don't think that they will give you money and they will go to sleep. They do monitor. So you also must state clearly, how do you plan to monitor your research? How do you plan to evaluate your research? All these things are very, very important documents you must provide in your proposal. So you can see it's very, very big work. It's a very lengthy work. So to win 50 million is not free. So when you see people saying they wanted NRF, just celebrate them, because that tells you the magnitude of work they have put into it. So again, your dissemination strategy is also important. How do you want to communicate your research? They don't want your research to end in your school. They don't want your research to end on the shelf. Aside from publication, how else do you want to tell people about the things that you are doing? So Tefund also look out for this. And next is your research team. You have to develop a profile for your research team. For these profiles, you must have a profile, for a very short profile for each person, and of course, you also have their pictures. You have to upload all of these on the Tefund NRF concept note NRF website. Then again, you want to have now this is where I was talking about the research work to date. You have to show evidences of what your team has done so far. And most of your research works to date must support the idea you are trying to get fund for. So if now we were looking for 5.2 remediation, so you can see that we're able to prove that my team has started something on this already. In fact, when we applied for the concept note, after the application for concept note, I had to get my team together. Okay, let's start this work. Let's not wait for Tefund submission. And of course, we did that. I did that ignorantly. I just felt it's important for us to start to even run a field simulation of what we want to do to see if it will work, and not knowing that was what was going to get us funding, because we had to show here that we have started something close to what we're asking for money for. So they saw it and said, look, these guys are serious. They know what they are doing. And of course, they can get funded. So you must show whatever you're going to show here must relate to what you are asking them to fund you for. Don't bring arbitrary, it's not time to show off. List projects that are directly related to what you're asking Tefund to fund you for. And of course, have relevant publications. For my team, for this publications, we had 9 publications that are related to what we're asking money for. Of course, what does this demonstrate is it demonstrates capacity, that we know what we are doing. And of course, you also have a section that talks about previous research grants. So if any member of your team has won previous grants, please, you have to list them. And of course, what this shows is that your team has what it takes to manage money. You are not novice, So once you are doing this, you keep getting scores for that. Then, of course, your group research. Now, this is the point where you have to tell us what each person is doing in the research. Why are they part of your team? What roles are they carrying? They are carrying. What is their role? What responsibilities are you going to assign to them? Why have you selected them? So don't just put people because you like their face. No, you must be able to defend whatever team composition you are proposing for the study. Then you have the host institution. They want to find out, does your institution have enough office space and laboratory space to conduct the research? What equipment and materials do you have currently in your facility that would help you to conduct the research? And of course, what equipment and materials do you have in nearby institutions? So if you are collaborating, for example, with somebody in South Africa and they have same machine, you can say, okay, there's a same machine. So they know that, okay, you will not be stranded because from your team, somebody has access to same machine. So they want to know, because they are not going to give you money to start buying a same machine. Tefund NRF is not to purchase equipment, it's to carry out research. So once you begin to quote, you want to buy this, you want to buy that, you want to buy a laptop. In fact, don't even put you want to buy a laptop, because before you started applying, you should have a laptop with which you will do your work. So there are some quotes that should not even appear. So that's why they're asking, looking at this part of the category to say, okay, what does your institution have and what does your collaborators also have? And of course, what are the other technical supports that you will need to make this research viable and of course completed. And next is the financial aspect of the research project. Now, this is very key. Many proposals fail at this point because Tefund take this percentage serious. Your personnel must not exceed 19.99%. If you mistakenly do 20.1, 20.2, your project, your proposal will be cancelled. You see, the reason why many people don't get funded is just due to silly mistakes, small mistakes. Unfortunately, nobody will tell you because the guidelines are already there. Your job is to ensure you adhere strictly to these guidelines. 19 point. So the best, if I were you, calculate yours to like 19.98 or 19.96, and don't use calculator for grant calculation, for fund budget preparation. Use Excel. And of course, you must know how to calculate, how to sum, so that as the variables are changing, you will be seeing the final figure and you'll be seeing the percentages. So don't just assume anything. There are reasons why all these things are being put in place. And of course, your equipment cost must not exceed 24.95% of your total budget. So whatever you're going to buy, make sure it's reasonable and make sure the total does not exceed this. And of course, for your supply and consumables, you must not exceed 34.06%. For your data collection cost, there's a percentage as well, 1.1%. For your travels and logistics, you must not exceed 4.99%. Now, for your cost of dissemination findings, at least 2.99. Don't say approximately 3. There's nothing like approximately 3. Is 2.99%. So you want to stay below that particular value, like 2.98 or 2.97, because if you venture into 3.01, you will be disqualified. So understand that the reviewers are not your friend. They are your enemies. They are looking for your mistake so they can disqualify your fund. So it's not your village people that is affecting you, but it is you that is actually affecting yourself. So understand these silly mistakes and avoid them. And of course, the other cost, of course, Tefund does not fund miscellaneous. So don't come and start putting miscellaneous unforeseen circumstances. Foresee the circumstance now and give it a name. Don't start putting miscellaneous contingency. Those things are not acceptable for NRF budget preparation. So maybe in another discussion, we'll look more about budget preparation because of my time. And lastly, you must have an executive summary, which must not exceed 600 words maximum. So all of these things are very essential if you are seeking for the right funding when it comes to your full proposal. So if you want a full proposal to scale through to the next stage, you must ensure that you are able to address all of these aspects that I've actually listed in your in your full proposal. So reviewers do not simply read the proposal, they score it. So there's what we call the scoring point. So you have a scoring criteria that is even available in NRF guidelines. So if you download the NRF research guidelines, you will see the scoring criteria there. And of course, they actually have the 10 sessions and they all carry different marks. Total point is 100 scores. So now let me tell you how it's also graded. There are about 2 reviewers that Tefund will employ or engage, or we call them assessors. So the 2 of them will independently look at your proposal, of course, not only yours, but those that fit into their category. And that's why we said that you must ensure you submit at the right category. If you carry an engineering project into humanities and social, of course, you will score 0 because the person there knows nothing about engineering. So it is you that took your proposal to the wrong section or the wrong category. And of course, automatically you will lose funding or your proposal will be stepped down. So when these 2 people finish doing their independent assessment, Tefund committee will take the average scores. And of course, they will rank them. So if, for example, in a category, 10 people submitted, they will look at who came first based on the total percentage. That's why every score counts. So if you understand the process, you can actually get funded. So don't put all of your energy into grant writing when you don't understand how it is being scored. There are procedures to all of. Most people don't read the NRF guidelines. They just go and start filling forms. No, that is not the way to approach grant writing, especially for NRF. You must understand the researcher's guideline and adhere strictly to it. That is the only way you can get funded. Of course, you might be lucky, and of course, you might not be lucky. So it's important to understand these guidelines and understand how they pick. So if, for example, in a category, they have like 10 people that are submitted and they did the scale and they just only want to pick the 3, that means they'll pick the first 3 that actually meet up with the scores they were looking for. So it's important you find out the guidelines. I think I have it, but because of time, I'm almost out of time. I can always send it to the organizers who can share them to your email. Of course, I'm not saying that the guidelines might still be valid for this year because we're expecting NRF call any moment from this month, but again, we are still waiting for it. So you must download the guideline if it has not changed and work with it. And of course, if you are successful, you will be invited to what we call a proposal defense. And in fact, that is another very tricky area. So Tefund has problems. So before you start, ask yourself, do you have the mind to go through their problem? Because their funding cycle is very, very tedious, very tasking. So for the final defense, you will be invited to Abuja, where your team will pitch to the panel. And of course, you have just 5 minutes to say something about your research. So that 5 minutes, make it count. Make it count. From our own example, our own experience, when we went there, we just had 5 minutes, and of course, they were already going for break. So you can imagine how tense they were. And just say what you want to say. And after we finished saying what we wanted to say, they said to us, okay, let's go to your budget. So they've also gone through our proposal. They found that the only way they can eat us was on the budget. So the budget defense was where they really finished. In fact, we never even knew we would still get funded because they pieced our work based on the budget because they took us on strictly. And fortunately or unfortunately, we used the template of the year before to prepare our budget. So we never felt we would have issues. But, the panel, and maybe some of them have applied to new research abroad, and of course, they've seen a new way of doing budget. They just say, look, this thing is old, it's rubbish. The kind of languages we got were actually, frustrating and looking as if we have lost it. But we had something that actually worked for us, and we're able to adjust our budget again. But again, you have to go prepared because they will ask you to defend every item on your budget. And why? Because what they are looking for basically is they want to slash your money. So they need justification to slash your money. It's not as if they just want to slash your money, and they want a situation where you can give them evidence to slash your money. And of course, so most proposals are rejected at one of these 3 gates: compliance level, scientific merit, and of course, delivery confidence. So when you are submitting proposals and you are likely to be rejected, just know that maybe your guidelines, your word limit has been exceeded. You didn't pick the right category. Your budget is outside the scope, and of course, you have some missing forms. Maybe we had some situations whereby some people did not even put their names. A lot of people submitted proposals and forgot to have institutional endorsement, so that's much about. So next time you want to submit, I'm rounding up now. Do not submit until you have checked all of these green boxes. Make sure everything about your submission is intact so that you don't spend all your time preparing a grant proposal only for you to get rejected. Thank you for listening. You can
Wow.
always still reach out to me after this program if you have some other further questions or interactions that we could not capture because of time. Once again, thank you to the organizers for having me on board, and I'm sure we have been able to pick one or two um, from this
Wow.
conversation this evening. Thank you so much.
Dr. Ben, it's more than 1 and 2. I think we should have made this a part 1 and a part 2. So much stuff. It's loaded. Honestly, a lot of things. And for some of us that have made attempts at applying for the Tefund, I'm seeing so many new things. I'm like, wow. Honestly, we appreciate you. So we have some questions for you. I see there's a question in the Q&A, but I would ask my question. So Dr. Ben, if you are faced with a situation where you have to give only one advice to someone who has never applied for a TED fund funding before, what is going to be that one advice? Sorry, you're muted.
Yes, so I know I'm muted. One advice is your problem is make sure the problem you are looking for, you are trying to solve is a national problem.
Okay.
So your problem statement is very, very important because if it's not what they are interested in from the first thing, from the title, you don't want your reviewer to be pissed off. You want them to engage. So you must understand the problem and sell the problem. So it's a market we are selling
Yes.
because they don't know you, they don't know your research, but what you are bringing is what they want to buy. So I would advise you work strictly on your research problem. What problem are you trying to solve and how does it benefit Nigeria as a whole? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So from your experience, would you say that the assessment by the senior researchers assessing these applications, would you say it is very objective, or is there a degree of subjectivity to the assessment of the applications? You've been
Yes,
there, so what do you think?
for me, interestingly, like I said, it was my first time applying, and I was able to listen carefully to one of the assessors who came to my school to speak like this also. And, like I said, for me, I've always thought you must know somebody to have access to grants. But when he told us that you do need to know somebody, it will interest you to know that that same year, 2023, I actually applied for 4 research grants, one in British, one NCC, one TED Fair, and NRF, and I got all the 4. It was my first
Wow.
time for all of them. So it broke the jinx of me thinking that you must know somebody. You don't need to know. So most of the assessors are actually fair, but the issue is we don't follow guidelines, and that's a simple truth. People write as if they are writing for journals. Grant writing is not the same as journal or article writing. That is where people actually
That is
think the
one
assessors are not
nugget
objective.
we got from you today. Academic writing is not research writing. Maybe we should think
It's
about
not.
another
It's not.
webinar where you show us the differences
It's
between
not.
academic writing and
It's
research
not.
writing, because people are doing it the way they write their papers for publication.
Yes, yeah. So that's why when you are writing, in fact, another seminar, I can show you how to use AI tools to help your grant. In fact, if you are not using AI tools to prepare your grant, then you are missing out a lot. So there's a way we do it with AI tools that helps you understand exactly what is the funder looking for. It's just like you must know the mind of the funder. So no matter how beautiful your research is, you have to narrow it and sell. You are selling something. You go to the market, people tell you, come and buy tomatoes. You have 5 people selling tomatoes. but you choose one person. Maybe the person smiles at you. Maybe this person say, let me carry your bag. Maybe the person made a joke.
Exactly.
So the person had to reach out to you to make you come to buy from them. So that is the thing you have to understand about grants. You must appeal or you must seek to sell your market or your research to the funder to make them see that, okay, this project is actually worth funding on, what we're putting money on. So it's very, very important that researchers pay attention to this particular aspect.
Thank you so much. More questions for you. But for our participants listening, see, we're going to have a part 2, which is going to be Dr. Best has given us a tip of the iceberg using AI in our grant writing. So please keep your eyes on your emails for the next webinar. Thank you, Dr. Ben. So someone is asking on the Q&A, what if what if a researcher does not have funding to conduct a pilot? That would, because when you were talking to us, you said sometimes having a prior study or a pilot study related to what you're making your application for to Tefund can help your chances. So what if a researcher does not have that kind of fund to do a pilot? What do you
Doc,
advise?
every researcher has money to do pilots. You see, the problem with us basically in Nigeria is we misuse what we have. For example, like I said, Fund is open to academia, researchers from the academia. So that means you are a researcher either in the university or the polytechnic. And where is your funding from? You have students you work with. This one that I said we did, but when we submitted, I called my team together and I said, okay, from your project students, let each person contribute five students for us to carry out a pilot study.
Okay.
So the question now is, how are you using your research students? Even if you don't have research, you can say, okay, maybe in my own place, I don't have students to work with. That is why you have a collaboration. You have a collaboration. Somebody in your research team must have access to students. So the project you give your students annually, you can make one of them your project. One of those projects can be this one you are looking for money for. So that is how you get it. So you don't need funding like as if you need money, capital to do a pilot study. You don't. I use the resources because these students, of course, they will fund their project. The only thing you have to do is guide their research. Make sure that, okay, this is the one I want to do. Then they direct their resources or whatever funding they have towards that project. That's the way we survive here as academia in Nigeria. Of course, in other countries where I've been to, they have fund money for research. But for Nigeria, that is what we can do. Use your project students to do your pilot study. And it doesn't make any sense for you to be having one topic. You have 10 students. You are giving them, one topic this year. Next year, you move to another topic. That's not the way research is being done. Stick to a particular research area and let them know you for that. And of course, over time, you'll be able to begin to see the problem and see how that research area, it will interest you to know. I'm in physics. But my 2 postdocs have been in, the first one was in meteorology engineering. Now I'm currently in civil engineering. So because I've been able to move my research from physics to see how it can benefit other fields. And that's what you do at the level of a postdoc. You are looking beyond your PhD to say, okay, this is what I did in my PhD. But again, this knowledge I have from this field can benefit this particular field. And that's what funders are looking for. So don't give me the excuse that you don't have money to do your research or course research. No, use the students you have. As poor as our system is in Nigeria, we can still make something out of it. Use your students to run your pilot study, and of course, see how you can publish 1 or 2 papers in that regards. I hope that clarifies that question.
Interesting. Honestly, this is a very good advice. There's another question for you, and that's Bayemi is asking, and please, can you go back to the slide that says why were you chosen for this webinar?
Okay.
Because Bayemi is asking, did Dr. Ben win an institutional funding before winning his first NRF? So show them that slide and then tell us how it went for you.
Well, for me, in fact, I did not even win institutional funding. Like I said, for me, it started in 2023. I finished my PhD in 2021. I was in South Africa in 2021 for a bench work. And from there, I had to change my research direction. So in 2023, we were at home, and the director of research then, who happened to be my immediate boss, asked us to come for a workshop. And I was like, the way we normally show ourselves, what do they want to teach us then? They are just wasting our time. Sometimes you don't know something, you are still pompous. And that's what's killing us as researchers. Some of us are not willing, are humble to learn. So I just went there like everybody else to say, okay, let's go and hear what this man had to say. And I don't know about Professor Ibinu. It was the first time I met him, but of course, he's one of the top Nigerian researchers when it comes to grantsmanship. He has won a lot of them. So he was there. So I saw the way he presented, and what actually made it for me was he came with young people. These people were able to present, and I find like these people are older than them. If they can do fine, I can also do fine. So, and that was how I started. We started with NCC. That was the first call he came with, and I tried to get the team together, and we applied. We only two that even applied, and it would interest you to know we won. I was like,
Wow.
is this, you mean? And I said, okay, after the NCC, I said, okay, let me go and look for another big trouble. So I went online. I saw British Council. They were doing grant GES, 25 million thousand pounds. I said, 25,000 pounds. Is it possible? I said, okay, let's apply. I got my team together. We came up with a mobile system device. In fact, one of my colleagues was telling me, Dr. Ben, stop wasting your time. The white people will not fund you. They have the best teams already. I said, the worst we will get is a no. And you can't believe that after submitting, we got a yes, and we were the only team in Africa that was selected.
Wow.
So it begins to tell you that
Congratulations.
rocket science, as it were. So I had not even had any experience, but all I actually did was to pay attention to what the funder wants, because that was the thing I learned from that webinar, that workshop with Professor Ibinu. Pay attention to what the funder wants. There is no bad research. The issue is we don't pay attention. So if your funder is saying it must not exceed this particular word, don't go beyond that. Don't be add one, because he wants to add extra one word, he will get disqualified. It's not wickedness. It's not.
Yeah.
There's no action attached to
They're
it.
looking, they're looking to shed the number of people they would fund.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's your fault. It's nobody's fault. So in fact, I've not even gotten IBR. I've not even gotten equipment fabrication. So after that with that same momentum, we said, okay, let's go for Tefund NRF, Tefund Tech Fair. And it was the first time, and I got it. In fact, Tefund Tech Fair, I've gotten a lot of research in that regards. And that same year, I said, okay, let's go for the big one. Let's try the NRF. In fact, for the NRF, we submitted like 6 proposals. But so when I looked at the proposals we submitted, it was only this one that scaled through. So when I checked them carefully, I now saw the mistakes we made with the other ones that made this one stand out. Because for this one, we add a lot of content of what we have been doing before that we actually supported. But with the other ones, the team structure was poor. There was no contribution from our team to say, okay, you guys have been doing something in these regards before now. So that was what it was for me. So you don't need to have a prior experience before you can apply. Just follow what the team, what the funder is questioning for. Like I said, once you have the AI tools, you can be able to get more. In fact, there's no grant I write these days. This year alone, I've applied to about 6 grants, and I think we've got 2 international grants with different partnerships. And when I write, I actually have an AI that helps me to understand what the funder is looking for. Because these are some of the things. If you don't know what the funder wants, you will just be writing, and you will find that you are not making any progress.
Awesome, what you're sharing with us. More questions. So Professor Nkwo is asking, are references needed in the body of the concept note? Because I don't think I saw it. I think I saw it at the end, and I think you said 5.
Yes,
but within the body of the concept note.
Yes, they must be there. They must be there.
Within the body. Okay.
Yes, you must cite it. Just the in-text citation that we normally do.
Okay, I think that also along the same line, he was asking the same question. Are in-text references needed? Yes. Yeah, I said, what form of referencing? Is it Vancouver or? Do you
Well,
know?
it depends on you. It's not because again
Okay.
you're having a word count limit, so you want to but basically it's better use upper because the reviewers though I think a fair reviewer would not be concerned, but most of the times we use the upper style basically for
Okay.
that concept note.
Okay, so Esther is asking, must all your team members be employed by the university or the institution where you are? For instance, you have a PhD student who has graduated but is not yet employed. Also, that
So it
situation.
doesn't have to be employed. In fact, Debt Fund NRF welcomes industrial collaborations. So if you have people from the industry, it's fine.
Mm,
Then of course, I think we had a multidisciplinary team. We have people from other schools as well. We have people from other departments. So you can make it multidisciplinary depending on the problem you are solving. Well, if as long as the lead researcher, the main focus is the PI. The PI
mm,
must actually come from a TED fund approved institution. The team members can come from anywhere, but
okay.
just package a proposal very well so that there's no loophole there, you know.
Okay, which is quite similar to what you were saying about the requirements for being a PI. Has to be a Nigerian researcher from a Nigerian institution. But you're also saying that we can collaborate with non-Nigerians. And the reason why I'm saying I'm bringing this up for you to clarify is that at Ivan Research Institute, we offer the Senior Scholar Program every year. It's a program that offers a lot about grant writing like this, but also soft skills, technical skills to help researchers, early mid-career researchers. And some of these researchers who are going through the program are not just from Nigeria. We have from Kenya, from Uganda, from Malawi, from Canada. So they can do the TED fund, but they will not be the PI, right? They can be part of the team.
Yes, they can be part of the team, but in fact, they can be part of the team. They will not be the PI, and that's why most of the times when I travel out, I tell my colleagues in the diaspora to say, okay, there are some problems that have been solved where you are. To Nigeria is novel because the problem still exists. So the best people that can even suggest solutions are you guys, because you have the technological know-how. Yeah. So just
Mhm.
collaborate with a Nigerian PI, and you'll be able to, get good funding, and they can solve this problem. So, but of course, that fund has no issue with your collaborators, but the PI is their main man as long as because the money will be given to in the institution. You can't access the money directly. So the money is going to be paid to your institution from where you can now, access the money. So like I said, they have no problem with your team members, but your PI
Mm,
must be from
yes.
a Nigerian-based institution.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to know. Um, Dr. Koli Usamaka is saying, I had written and scaled through the concept note phase, but was unsuccessful during the proposal phase on the first attempt. Can I review the same proposal, drawing insights from your presentation, and resubmit the same proposal title? Yeah. So it says she's also asking if you're open to reviewing a proposal.
What I would say basically is that from my own experience, we've had cases where people try to resubmit a proposal that did not scale through the first time. I think that fund has a database that kind of flags such proposal, and the disadvantage of TED Fund NRF basically again is the applicants don't get information or feedback to understand why their proposal failed
Yeah.
on the other grants. So I think they do that basically to,
This
kind of
to
a cheat.
discourage resubmissions,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So
Mm.
so if you're going to
They want
resubmit,
fresh ideas every time.
yeah, I will advise you look for a new title better if it's going to be the same content, but look for a new title. And of course, you can amplify because once the same title gets appears, it might be flagged. I don't know. I'm not too
Yeah,
sure about
yeah.
the system, but I'm suspecting they have that in place. So if
And maybe modify some of the objectives. Throw in
yeah,
maybe one or two
just
new
just
objectives.
just use a new way to write them. Just rewrite it. Don't represent it the way you did last time. Just do a lot of brush up that even somebody else will not see, will not be able to say, will not even remember that this was what you submitted before. They will see it as a new a new proposal entirely. So change the
Yeah.
title, change everything, and of course, um, it
Hmm.
would at least pass the detection stage. Let me use that word.
Okay, so there are many more questions coming, and I think I saw one on the chat, but let me ask because it's saying, can a technologist be a principal investigator on a Tefund application?
Well, we've not had any cases, though I've not heard of any technologists that won. Though, in fact, I was a technologist. I started my career as a technologist before I moved into the lecturing cadre. Um, but State Fund NRF is a bit silent on that because it's
Hmm.
basically for academic. Initially
Yeah.
they used to say you must be a chief lecturer or you be a prof before you can apply it. But along the line, they found out that the professors or the chief lecturers don't know the project. Is the subordinate under them.
Yeah.
When they go for third fund defense, they cannot
Hmm.
defend the project because they were not part of it was never the idea to begin with. So to avoid that, third fund had kind of I think NRF kind of lifted an embargo on the who can be the PI. So, but as long as you're an academic staff, you can be the PI. But again, I
Hmm.
think it's still this preference for you must be in senior lecturer and above, kind of an equivalent anyway, because of the polytechnic, there's the
Hmm.
equivalent part. For the polytechnics, the technologies can partake because they are academic staff. But for university, technologies are not academic staff. So they can't
Yes.
partake.
They
So
can't be part of,
they
yeah,
can't be
they
they
can't
can't
be part
apply.
of the application for if it's
Yeah,
coming from a
but you can
university.
be a team member, you can be a member of the team, but you can't be the PI. That's just what we are saying there. But for the Polytechnic, because the technologists are academic staff, they can apply. So preferable lecture. But again, apart beyond you, they will also look at your team support. The people
Hmm.
that are surrounding you, if they because your team must demonstrate competence. So even if you are the technology a chief technologist and you applied and they see doctors, they see PhD holders around you, if it's what they want to encourage. In fact, one of the questions they asked me, basically my team when we got there was, you guys are in a polytechnic. You are about to win your first grant. Will you leave the polytechnic and go to university? It was a serious question because that's not the kind of question you prepare for because we're saying that look,
Yeah,
we
exactly.
don't want people to leave the polytechnic and go to universities. We want people from polytechnics to also benefit because
Yes.
this is research. So, and I told
Hmm.
them for me, it's not about where I work, it's about the value I create.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what, so you can actually
That's
apply as
great.
a technologist, but make
Mm.
sure your team structure, shows competence people around you that can convince the funder that you will deliver and not run away with their money.
Okay, so we have there are three more questions. Odinaka Anyanwu is saying, I have a faculty appointment in Nigeria and in the US. So am I eligible to apply?
Yeah, you're eligible as long as your Nigerian institution where you have an appointment is a third fund beneficiary. Because nobody they don't do background check, so it's not even anybody go to announce your background. So they're only going to look at the information you supply, uh, and of course, because like I said, the money will be paid to the Nigerian institution, so
Institution.
you can only
Mhm.
access from there. They will not give it to you cash. So if as long as the institution has no problem with your affiliation, they know that you are with them, you can still go ahead and apply. For me, I have several collaborators, I have several affiliations all over the world. So, but I know that okay, I have a primary affiliation back in Nigeria, which I use to, get whatever local funds I want to get. And the institution has not denied me, so you can apply. That's no big it's not a big issue.
Okay. Esther, it was asking, does it mean you can submit more than one proposal in one call? Because
Yes, you
we heard
can.
you say something like six. Is it in one call?
Yes, it was a one call, but what we had is you have different PIs.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you can only be a PI for one call. You can't be a
Wow.
PI for six calls. So that's why you can actually have your team
Mm.
built around different people. So different
Okay.
person can submit the different calls. So don't limit yourself to just one. For me, I have teams in humanities that we look at because again, I like problems. So I speak with people. So I know how to convert a problem into a research. So I look, but it's not compulsory. I aid the team. But again, if you are
Yes.
going to, one of the things I'm going to just say here is if you're going to get external PI, before you do, please sign agreements that states that you own the work, but you are
Mm-hmm.
appointing them as external PI because there are cases once you get lucky and the money is approved, that's one bad thing we have. Well, it's only Nigeria. In fact, in any even when I attend nature grant courses, is what they say clearly. Let there be
Yes.
documents signed by every participant. Let them know
Yes.
what they are supposed to do, so that at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, you will not start fighting over authorship. Let it be clear
Yes.
that it is
Let
your
it be
work.
clear from the beginning.
But you are appointing him as a PI. So that at the end of the day, by the time
Mm.
he grabs the money now, he will not just disappear and tells you you are not the owner, he doesn't know you. We have several cases of that currently, even
Mm.
within my own circle. Of once the money before the money comes, nobody will care. But once the money comes, you discover that
Everybody's interested.
everybody's interested and they will not do the work. The work will
Yeah,
be
of
left
course.
abandoned because they
And,
were
and,
not
and that's
really.
why you emphasize about the team members being people who can get the job done and not just maybe
Yes, don't
friends,
just
acquaintances, or you're gifting them a position.
in fact, those were the mistakes I made during my first four grants, and it haunted me badly. It haunted me badly because I just felt, okay, compassion. Let my colleagues, let's put ourselves. My sister, it was terrible. It was a terrible experience, and I vowed never to make such again. So I always advise anytime I'm on a call, don't use paddy or friendship. Once it comes to money, people change.
Yeah, you
I
can
don't
you
know
can
why.
imagine if you had to make those mistakes now with the economy, the way the Nigerian economy is.
So please
you
let it be
probably
clear.
you probably have some people in EFCC net, that
Most
kind of
people are
thing.
not as prudent as you are. When I won my British Council grant, you can't believe I did not touch the money until the end of. I told them, I said, we can't touch this money. Some of them were shouting. I said, you can't touch this money. It's better for me to give the money back to the funder and say,
Mm.
okay, take your money. We did not do the work. Than for me to give you money and the funder is pursuing me to submit and I cannot submit. I don't want to destroy my integrity. There are more money to make. So why should I destroy it because of the change I think I've seen?
Wow.
Not everybody
Mm.
is financially disciplined. And that's why you must sign agreement. You are allowed to have a team, but state it before they submit that you own the work and you are inviting them. That's an agreement between two of you, but there must be a legal signing that
Signing.
that this was the initial position.
Hmm.
Because if you don't do that, we
Interesting.
will haunt you. You might
Mm.
think it will not go through, and it finally goes through. So don't assume, oh, you might not win. And what
Mm.
happens? What if you win? So
Mm-hmm.
always carry that
Yeah,
mindset
the
and
what
prepare.
if is always
Yes,
paramount. What if?
yes.
The chances. Okay, so the final question, which you've already addressed, which is going to take us to a new webinar with you sometime in the future, is which AI tool do you recommend to use when writing your grant?
Yeah, for me, I work with multiple AI tools, though I built my capacity over the years. I use the Chat GPT. I use the Notebook LM. I combine like four. I also use the Scopus AI. I have the Scopus Manager again because again, um, why grant writing is not academic writing, but you must also be a good academia to be able to write grants because you want to be able to search literatures that support whatever you are doing. Just that this time around you are thinking it in a different direction. So you must be able to use more than one tool. And these tools are not generating for you. No, they are only helping you to brainstorm, to see the big picture of what you
Mhm.
want to apply for. In fact, like today now, I'm supposed to apply to a particular British Council grant. And do you know, I never even knew that there was a kind of a workshop, pre-grant workshop, but when I actually prompt my AI and I told it what I want to do, it caught my attention to it that you must attend this workshop, which I also missed. So the AI will help you see some information about the call that you might have missed because as a human being, we have emotions, we have tax, we have everything that actually affects us. But for the AI, it's
Yes.
focused on a tax. So it's
Mm.
not to draft the grant for you, it's to help you see the different loopholes, the different areas, and of course, to also review what you have written and see if it means, and that's where the notebook LM comes in. For notebook LM, I use it most of the time after writing. I will put the researchers, the funders guideline there. I will put my own particular draft there, and I will ask it to begin to criticize it section by section. What is missing? Does it make sense here? And it will point out to me that, look, your introduction is good, but there's a problem here. It doesn't read well. So it helps me to identify the areas I need to
Mm.
brush up. And of course, it also helps me to make sure that my references are validated, that, okay, what I'm saying, the method I want to apply, does it really make sense? Is it supported by existing literature? All of these things that you will not be able, even if you give a professor to read, he will still miss it. But an
Mm.
AI, because of the knowledge it has, is able to help you see everything. And that's why Notebook LM is better, because Notebook LM does not depend on external sources. It looks critically
Yes.
at your own source, your document, and see where the fault, is. But for Chat GPT, it's also more powerful. In fact, the 5.6 that is currently released is one of the best I'm seeing so far, because the taking
Mm.
capacity has actually increased. And of course, its ability to reason well and give you good output has also increased. And that's why basically I keep talking about, when you're using AI, you have to engage in what we call conversation engineering, not prompt engineering. So that's the mistake many people make. Prompt engineering, you copy and paste. For conversation engineering, you argue with the AI, you discuss with the AI, you brainstorm, you look at it together. You are not copying and pasting. That is not how to do research with AI. It's not copy and paste. You don't do that. So that is why many people don't know how to use it. In fact, and that's why there's no funding application where they don't permit use of AI. But of course, you own the
You must
you
disclose.
own the
You
work.
must disclose the use.
Yeah, you own the work, and of course, you must be able to. That's why AI is not an author; it's just a tool. So I think the best thing is even AI assisted, because AI cannot generate anything on its own. It's whatever you're asking to generate for you that it would actually generate for you. So there are different tools you can use. Some people use Claude. I've tried Claude, but I'm not seeing the full benefit here. But for agentic research, agentic AI, Claude is better. But for research, core research, I've not seen Claude. But again, it depends on what you train yourself on. So you can pick one that you're comfortable with. You know how to work with the system, but you can't use one AI. You have to have multiple AIs that can do different tasks for you. And that's the best way we use them.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I think this has been very interesting. We overshot by almost 15 minutes or more. We want to say thank you so much, Dr. Ben, and just know that you're coming back again. Just know that. Please. Thank you so much. We had so much information. We're motivated. We're inspired from what I'm seeing on the chat. People are happy. They want to have your slides, and I promise them you're going to get your slides, because it's going to be on our website. Our website details are on the chat. Our YouTube channel also will feature this webinar by Friday, and you can go back and listen to Dr. Ben over and over again. So I want to thank everyone who have stayed up to this time. Thank you so much. And please, we'll see you next month with another stimulating webinar. Thank you for attending, and take care. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Tonia. So I will send the slide to you once I get back
Yes.
home.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.